So hey, my name is Clark Bartram, and I have been in the health and fitness industry for decades now, going on 4 decades. I'm 60 years old, and I'm probably the last guy you would expect to hear this from, but recently I've been diagnosed with prostate cancer. And it, honestly, it elevated my game. It has me on a new level. I started a nonprofit organization called Check It Like a Man. My goal with this is to make sure that every single man gets his PSA checked, because that's what happened to me. I was just at the gym one day in the parking lot looking at my blood work on my phone with my concierge doctor. And he just made the simple statement, hey man, your PSA is elevated. You might want to go to your doctor. So that started this process. So it started with a simple blood test. And that's how easy it is to have an early detection as to whether or not you might be at risk of having this. So with that being said, I went to my doctor and he did what every man dreads, the DRE, the digital rectal exam. So he goes in there and he feels around and says, well, I feel something in there, but I'm not that worried about it. So if my doctor's not worried about it, then I'm not worried about it. So I go on about my life, and he reaches back out to me later and says, we're gonna send you in for an MRI. Then the insurance turned down the MRI. So I'm telling this story so you understand you need to take control of your health, because the standard of care system is operating at a pace where they're just seeing people left and right. You need to be in control of your health. And I wasn't. I was just looking at how jacked I could be, how high I could get my testosterone naturally, and all that sort of thing, never thinking that someone who looked the way I look and lived the way I lived could be diagnosed with something as nefarious as cancer. So with that being said, we got the MRI. The MRI came back and he said, hey man, unless you're some sort of anomaly, there's an 85% chance that you have cancer. And I said, have you seen me? I am an anomaly. I'm 60 years old and I'm fit and I'm in great shape. And all joking aside, it was an 85% chance on this, what's called a PIRAD score. So then that obviously took me to the next level of detection, which would be the biopsy, which is not fun to have. So you get this thing shoved up your butt and boom, 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 12 core samples. Out of the 12, 7 of them came back cancer, 6 3+4 on a Gleason score, and 1 4+3 on a Gleason score, which is the one that they're concerned with. They all equal 7, but 4+3 has more cancerous cells than 3+4. A lot of stuff I'm learning I never thought that I would have to learn. So from there, we go to the next level, PSMA PET scan, to see whether or not it's metastasized in my body anywhere else. Thankfully, it hasn't. So from that point, I decided I am going to be the ambassador. I'm going to be the face of this diagnosis. And I am leaving no stone unturned as it relates to finding out why I got this diagnosis and helping you understand that you need to go get your PSA checked, regardless of how good you look, regardless of how healthy you are. And you need to get it checked specifically and especially if you're at risk. And at risk is, if your dad had it, you're at risk. If you're a black man, you're at risk. If you're a black man who has a black dad who had it, you're really at risk. So age doesn't matter. Just go get it checked. And it's very simple. It's the PSA check is basically a check engine light. It gives you an idea of what you need to do next. So that's my story in a nutshell, and I am on a mission again to find out why I got it, what I can do to get rid of it, and what I can do to help you make sure you go get checked. So the question is there any age limit? If you look at standard of care or typical allopathic medicine, they'll tell you 40 and above. But what I'm saying is it's a simple blood test. If you have any thought whatsoever or any fear or any reason to believe that you should go get checked at 20. While you're getting your normal blood routine, just say, hey, throw in a PSA. And what will happen is they'll say, no, you're not old enough yet. And then you say, yes, I want it, because the reality is you're in control. So it would make sense that if you had some sort of reason to look into it deeper, that you would look into it at any age. I had my son get checked and they said, hey, you're fine, don't worry about it. So that is off the list of things to be concerned with. So what I've done to make it easy on people is I created an in-home blood test kit. Like, I go to action right away. So the minute I was diagnosed, I'm like, I'm starting this foundation, Check It Like a Man. I created a blood test kit. Just so happened that I met a guy in the gym that day. How serendipitous was that this guy suddenly appeared right in front of my eyes saying, hey, I run the largest blood test facility in San Diego, you have full access to it. What do you want to do? So we created a kit. We test 7 different markers in that kit, one of which obviously is PSA. And you ship it to your house, you prick your finger, get a little blood drop on a card, let it dry, send it back in, self-addressed stamped envelope, and you don't even need to leave your house to get that done. So it's very simple. So the test is available at clarkbartram.com. So if you just go to Clark Bartram or clarkbartramsystems.com, there's a tab up across the top. It says blood test kit or something like that. Matter of fact, I'll show you what it looks like here. I brought it with me. So this is the kit right here. So that's available at clarkbartram.com. You just open it up and it tells you everything to do inside of the kit. And it's so simple. Got the little card here, tells you what to do next, whether or not you've done it right. The little pins in here, this one was used, but the little pins in here to prick yourself. There's an envelope that you would ship back, and it's a done deal. So one thing to consider is understanding that none of us are outside of the possibility of something like this happening. Like I said, I was the last person who I ever expected would get this diagnosis. 1 in 7 men will be given this diagnosis. But here's what I need you to understand. You don't need to panic. You have time. Prostate cancer is a slow-growing cancer. Don't let your anxiety dictate your treatment. Don't just willy-nilly go rushing to a surgeon and get it cut out. Interview as many people as you can. I'm creating a documentary about my journey and my process, and this is part of my journey and process. Flying here to Sacramento, California to talk to Mark on his podcast because he has a platform of men that are looking to get fit and healthy. And we never typically look inside. We're always looking at the outside aesthetic, but when do we look on the inside? A lot of guys wear it as a badge of honor. Oh, I haven't been to the doctor in years. I'm gonna tell you this, you're stupid. You're stupid if you're not getting your blood test. You're stupid because you have people in your life who are depending on you to be healthy and fit. No one needs you sitting in chemotherapy and just being drained of your energy when that energy could be used to be providing for your family, throwing the football with your son, going to dance rehearsals with your daughter. Whatever it is that you're meant to do in life, you need to be healthy to do it. And doing a simple blood test, man, it's so basic to get it done. So please understand that you are responsible to take control of this, and it's your right to push back on your doctor. It's your right to push back on your insurance. It's your right to be as healthy as you possibly can be. So the PSA screening is simply a screening. Consider it like a check engine light. So if your PSA comes back high, which normal would be anywhere below 4, so 4.0 and below would be nothing to be concerned with necessarily, unless you had something in your bloodline, like a father or somebody else who had it in your family. But it is not an indication of the fact that you have cancer. It's only a warning signal like, hey, go to the next level and get checked. So when I got my initial PSA back, I'm like, meh, I'm not worried about it. I'm Clark Bartram, I'm fit. But thankfully, I went to the next level. So that is the progression. You go from getting the PSA checked, there's even a urine test now. The science behind prostate cancer is growing. Like every 5 years, it's leaps and bounds. So what I'm doing personally is I'm checking my PSA weekly to make sure there's not what's called PSA velocity, meaning it shoots up really fast. If suddenly I went from where I'm at 12 to 25, there would be reason for concern for me. But if I hover around 12, 13, I'm okay to continually look at different ways of treating this. So I've looked at surgery, that's not an option. I've looked at hormone deprivation therapy, that's absolutely not an option. I'm looking at radiation through seed implantation, that is the option I'm looking to go, if in fact I need to go standard of care. What I'm currently doing now is doing, we'll call them alternative ways of healing this. Exercise, EWOT training, exercise with oxygen, supplementation, getting rid of chemicals, heavy metals, pathogens, and different things that we found in my blood. I've tested my urine, my stool, my blood, and my saliva. And we have over 80,000 data points in me that we're looking into that are going to direct me in my path. Because if we line up 10 guys with prostate cancer, every single one of them is different. And the treatment should be catered to the individual and why they got it and what's specific to them. Not every man is right for surgery. Not every man is right for radiation. So I'm looking into my genetic mutations to see if there's any predisposition to me in radiation. So we've seen none, so I know now that if I choose to go the radiation route, it will be something that my body will jive with and do well with. Yeah, so there is value in a lot of these different genetic tests. 23andMe will show you kind of like a high level if there might be some reason for concern or reason to look a little further. I don't want to say concern, but reason to look into it further. Investigative reporting, if you will. There are other genetic tests. There's urine tests that are coming out. Matter of fact, I just got one here recently that wasn't available when I got my diagnosis 8 months ago. Now it's available. So I'm going to take this urine test, and there's also a new blood test that I'm going to take, which are more for preventative than they are for where I'm at, already having the diagnosis. But within these tests, there are ways that we can look at specific things in me that would help us understand what we need to attack in my body, whether it's a parasite or some sort of heavy metal. But there are certainly a lot of different tests that you can take that are non-invasive. It's either urine or a simple blood test. And again, you can get enough blood from drops from your finger. You don't need vials full of blood. You want to make sure that you go to a lab that has quality testing machines, that they're calibrated right. You want to get tested on the same machine if possible, because there's a variance. If I go to Quest or LabCorp, there's a variance in testing. There's a variance in the scale. So make sure that you're being consistent in that. And then also look into these tests, because some of them can be pretty costly. I looked into one that was $1,000, and a friend of mine tried it, and there were no signs of any cancer, but he ended up having skin cancer. But these things, it's a moving target. So it's probably recommended that you check at least once a year. So any doctor I go into and see, the first thing they do is look at me and go, wow, you're in great shape. I wish every single patient was in the same shape that you're in. Now, a doctor is not going to say if you're 100 pounds overweight that radiation isn't going to work or cutting it out isn't going to work. But you have to think about the recovery. So being overweight is not good for anything, period. I'm not saying that that would give you prostate cancer necessarily, but being fit is better for anything. When you get some sort of COVID, for example, being fit is going to help you recover from that. So it just makes sense to understand that if you do get a diagnosis and you're waiting for treatment, and say you have to wait for your urologist to have an opening for 4 months, it would make absolute and complete sense to start lifting weights, to change your diet to a Mediterranean type of diet where it's kind of lower in carbohydrates. So even though sugar doesn't feed prostate cancer, having that additional sugar in your body is never good for you anyway. So lifting weights, modifying your diet, losing weight, all of these things are going to benefit you when the time comes for you to get whatever treatment plan you opt for. So with my specific diagnosis, I have unfavorable intermediate type 2C prostate cancer. So what that means is this: they don't want to treat me with one modality only, like radiation. They want to treat me with radiation and. So the typical and is, ironically enough, for a guy who's taught men how to boost their testosterone for the past 10 years online, they want to completely eliminate my testosterone from my body. Give me shots of Lupron, which would be the same shot that someone gets who is desiring to transition from male to female. I said, absolutely no. Matter of fact, it was even more aggressive than that when my doctor said, I put my finger right up in his face. I said, fuck no. There's no way that this is happening. I'm not doing this, because you need to think of quality of life when you're deciding what treatment option to go on. So if quality of life for me is having high levels of testosterone, even though it might reduce my chances of success by 10 or 15% by not opting for that additional treatment and just only going for radiation only, I'm willing to run that, because I want quality of life. I like having testosterone. I love being a man. I love being a strong, confident man. And going through menopause isn't something that I equate to being a strong, confident, powerful man. So some people would say, Clark, that doesn't make any sense. You know, it's better to be alive. you know, I know where I'm at in my process, and I know there are alternative things that I could do that would replace hormone deprivation therapy that would be equally as beneficial to me, but nobody ever talks about this stuff. Your standard of care doctor will not talk about this because they do X, Y, and Z all the time. Next guy, X, Y, Z. Next guy, X, Y, Z. I don't fit into X, Y, Z. I'm an A. I'm number one. I am the guy that is dealing with this differently than everybody else. I've not had a bad day. I've not thought, woe is me. I didn't ever once put my head down. The second I got the diagnosis, I went into action thinking, how can I use the platform that I have of being Clark Bartram, this fit guy that boosts testosterone naturally for men online, helps thousands of men every single day change the way they think about their current level of fitness. How can I use this new thing in my life to be something that's going to benefit men? That's the attitude that I took. So that being said, if you get a diagnosis like this, don't think, man, I'm dying, you know, life is over. It's not. It's a bump in the road. And if you're smart and you do the right things, you will overcome this. You will be better on the other end of it because you're going to stop dealing with bullshit in your life. You're going to understand that life is short and we could all be given a diagnosis that might be even more detrimental than what I have. And I just choose to be that guy that you're looking at right now, looking at your wife going, honey, I can't believe this guy got it. I better go get checked. And then your wife looks back at you and says, I've been telling you that for a year. It took him to say it. Hey, if it took me to say it, then go do it.